Hi, and welcome back. My name is John. I've been a type 1 patient for the past 45 years. I also ran a diabetes center for about 15 years in northern New York, and I'm currently working as an emergency medicine physician in New Hampshire. I've loved my life with diabetes. I've learned a tremendous amount from it. It's been a very positive impact for me. And about beginning of June, I decided to start a video series trying to increase awareness and share stories, a little bit of education, a little bit of, look what I did, I screwed that up royally, please don't do that yourself. Just to share ideas, induce discussion, and kind of help open people's eyes to diabetes. Please remember, none of this is medical advice. If you find something here that you might want to try, by all means, talk to your provider about it, but don't take this as the end-all be-all way it has to be. Diabetes is very much of a lifestyle rather than a disease. It certainly demands respect, but you need to live your life and help make your diabetes fit into that puzzle. So, I talked about early June when we started this video series. We've gone over a ton of stuff. Looked at my own diagnosis, grade school, high school, college, a lot of the diabetes camps, Banting, the diabetic alert dog. I had my mother on for her perspective, which I found very interesting. There certainly was a lot there that I didn't realize was going on in her head, which is understandable. So if you are caring for a loved one with diabetes, I highly recommend you check out Through a Mother's Point of View, or whatever we called it. But it's definitely very enlightening. Most recently, we've been dealing with some of the nasty parts of diabetes with the complications. Of course, these are things we all want to avoid. We looked at neuropathy and amputation of feet and extremities, certainly nothing anyone here wants. We looked at some of the physiology behind retinopathy and blindness with diabetes, one of the leading causes of blindness in working adults. So we kind of discussed all these nasty things that can happen, but there's a lot more to diabetes. In fact, one of the Facebook groups I'm part of, someone had posed a question about waking up with an excellent blood sugar, and by the time he had gotten dressed, sugar was through the roof. He had a black coffee. He didn't have any sugar in it or anything like that. No carbohydrates to really cause a high glucose. So he was wondering what people thought was going on or if they shared similar experiences. And of course, as you can imagine, many people have, including myself. So I decided that this week we're going to talk about Dawn, Somogyi, and beyond. These are the wonderful phenomenon and effects and mysteries of diabetes that can really mess us up and drive us crazy. So we'll take a look at the physiology of them. We'll take a look at exactly what is going on, how we can detect, and how we can avoid. So let's start with the Dawn phenomenon. I think most of us have experienced this. It is a royal pain in the butt. This is what happens as the body starts to wake up. We get a hormone surge in the body. Specifically, in this case, we're looking at growth hormone, which comes out of the pituitary gland in the brain. Growth hormone in young adults, adolescents, children is there, as you can imagine, to help with growth, bone development, muscle development, to make a good, strong individual. As we get older, it's more about maintenance, okay? More about muscle preservation and preserving some degree of that physical fitness that we had as young children. So that gets dumped early in the morning from the pituitary gland. This will cause high blood glucose. It will cause the liver to kind of release stored sugar, and again, designed for building, repairing, and maintaining, can have an impact on blood sugar. Add to that, cortisol, or the stress hormones coming out of the adrenal gland, get dumped, and these lead to insulin resistance, liver reversing glycogen storage and releasing stored sugar, causing a high blood glucose reaction. Add to that one more, and that's your epinephrine, or some people call it adrenaline. These are the catecholamines. These also come out of the adrenal gland. These are your fight or flight hormones. So I used to tell my patients, think about our bodies in the caveman era, okay? It wasn't like it was today, not even close. We would wake up and have to go hunt or gather our food. We didn't have the Maytag or Kenmore refrigerator right there to open up and grab our breakfast. It took time. So naturally the body is gearing up for that fight, that effort, by releasing some stored sugar, giving us the energy we need to wake up and survive. Unfortunately, humans have evolved tremendously, and now we literally need to wake up and get to the refrigerator, but the body hasn't quite adjusted. So all these hormones get dumped, they cause a blood glucose rise, and the key fact to these is you have no previous hypoglycemia. So no low sugars overnight. You just wake up and all of a sudden your sugar just goes through the roof. For those of you wearing a sensor like me, you'll see a nice flat line, maybe for most of the night, and then you can almost look at the graph alone and tell when you got up because you see it start to come up. If you're using a 780G, then you'll have some compensation for that rise, but you'll notice earlier in the morning, there's more insulin being dumped. I imagine if we were to measure our caveman friends, we would see early in the morning their stress hormones, their catecholamines, and their growth hormones are going up, so is their insulin. So not only are they releasing sugar from the liver, they're actually using that sugar appropriately to go out and hunt an animal and get an antelope to roast for breakfast. So that is what we call the dawn phenomenon. This is a high glucose levels in the morning as the body starts to wake up. And again, if you're using the whole 780G system or a pump system that compensates based on sensor data, you may not actually see the rise in sugar, but you will see the rise in insulin dosing. Number two, we're going to look at is Somogyi Effect. So this is, I used to call this the rebound phenomenon, and I dealt with this a lot as a child. Back in those days, I was taking regular insulin and NPH. NPH is a medium-acting insulin. It tends to spike. If you take it in the morning, it spikes around midday. If you take it before bed, it spikes around midnight. So middle of the night. So the key here is you would diet appropriately to compensate for that spike. I hate this insulin. It should be outlawed. We have many, many far better choices now. But what we don't have is an insulin that has a truly flat profile. They all have some fluctuations. I will tell you with Tresiba, even Lantus to some degree, Basaglar, we're seeing less Somogyi Effect, but it can still occur. So what happens with the Somogyi Effect is you have a nighttime low. Low enough to bother the body, to cause stress hormones, to cause oxidative stress on the body, but not low enough to wake you up. And again, you may be overly exhausted. It might have been a long day. You're just not able to wake up from that low sugar. So the body in turn corrects the sugar because you're not. And what happens is the body overcorrects, okay? We see a release of the catecholamines. We see a release of the stress hormone, the cortisol, and that causes the blood glucose to rise so that you wake up in the morning, you have a high sugar. So flashback 40 years ago. You know, mom calls Dr. McKay, hey, you know, his last few mornings, he's been waking up like 250, 260, 300. What do you want me to do? Oh, increase his NPH at night. So the NPH gets increased, and guess who goes lower in the middle of the night and has an even more pronounced Somogyi Effect? So the way to figure this out is to check a 2 a.m. sugar. So I spent many nights getting more NPH, waking up with higher sugars because I was still going really low in the middle of the night. And of course, adding insulin to that is only going to make it worse. So when we started checking 2 a.m. sugars, we found that the sugar was around 40 at 2 a.m. Like, oh, geez, here's the issue. Or the few times I woke up and treated the low, the next morning I woke up fine. So this is the Somogyi Effect is the body's response to a nocturnal hypoglycemic event that isn't caught. The way we diagnose it is with a 2 a.m. sugar or somewhere around that time. And the way we correct it is reduce that nighttime insulin, or if you're on a sensor, adjust your basal rates appropriately. If you're on a linked sensor and pump, it should happen on its own. The other way people can adjust for it is a high protein, fattier snack before bed. But as we age, you got to watch weight. So it's much easier and much better for you if you can adjust the insulin dosing appropriately. So that's dawn phenomenon, Somogyi Effect. Another one that I've learned about more recently, probably about 10 years ago, is feet on the floor phenomenon. So this happens this is just weird to me, but Dr. Fran Kaufman, who used to run the Medtronic Diabetes corner of my world, talked about it and has written about it many times. This is when you go from prone, lying flat, to getting up on your feet. Okay, this movement is going to cause some hormone release, specifically the cortisol hormone and some of the epinephrine, and that will cause you to have a little bit of a spike in blood glucose levels. So this is what a lot of people see when they wake up in bed, their alarm goes off, they shut the alarm off, they look at their sensor data. Oh, I'm 110, I'm doing great. They get up, brush their teeth, get dressed. 210. What the hell happened? I haven't even opened my mouth to eat yet. And this is the body's way of movement causing increase in sugar. It tends to be a little bit more of a mild effect. However, as you know, with diabetes, it's not so much your current blood glucose at the time, but it's the trend of sugars. So if you're already on your way up a little bit, maybe from some dawn phenomenon, this can make it a little bit worse. How do you treat it? You adjust your basal insulin, your Lantus, your Basaglar, your Levemir, Tresiba, to compensate for that, or you adjust your pump rates. Again, if you're on a sensor pump combo that's working together, you should never notice this. So those are the three major ones that we deal with, and honestly, they all tend to happen in the morning. They're very much related to stress hormones, growth hormone a little bit, and then the catecholamines are certainly involved. Another one that's kind of interesting, it's described a lot more in editorial type literature rather than journals. The physiology of it is pretty simple. This is what they call the Chinese restaurant effect. And what they're going after here is this is a large meal with a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat, and protein. So protein, carbs, and fat. Remember, if you get your chicken at the Chinese restaurant, some of them are so fried that you have this much fry and this much chicken in there. And that fat and the carbs from the breading combined with the protein can delay the absorption of the carbohydrates. So you have a little bit of slowed gastric emptying, and you have a mismatch between when those carbs should be absorbed compared to when they are. Sort of stretches it all out, okay? The result here is your sugar will spike hours after eating the meal. The way to compensate for this, number one, as you may have guessed, is if you're not wearing a sensor, to test frequently. Number two is adjust your bolusing for the meal. So you can do this with your Flex pen or whatever, Humalog pen, Quick pen, whatever pens you're using. If you decide you need 7 units for the meal, maybe do 3 in the beginning, 4 a few hours later. The other thing you can do with some of the pumps is they can adjust how that bolus is given. They can stretch it out over time. They can give you a little bit now, a lot later, however you so desire. And that's something you're going to have to do trial and error to figure out what works best. Again, not to be a broken record, but if you're on a sensor pump combination that's working together, then it should compensate for this. But again, take a look at your report. Look at that sensor data and see how your frequency of insulin microbolusing has increased throughout the span of 3 or 4 hours after that meal. And that's the impact of the high fat and high protein and delaying the carbohydrate absorption. I don't want to give fat and protein a bad name here, but it's that combination that kind of slows the carb absorption. So this is the same technique we used to use back in the day to help with the rebound effect. So you wouldn't just have some crackers before bed, you'd glob some peanut butter on them. So the fat and protein in the peanut butter would help delay the carbohydrate absorption so that you didn't have that middle of the night low and therefore didn't rebound and have a high sugar in the morning. My best way for dealing with this one, don't eat that shit. I mean, this is pizza. And it's really not just having a slice of pizza or having a little bit of Chinese food. This is eating a lot. So let's not be American. Let's be smart and eat appropriately and choose wisely the foods that we do eat. I'm all for fat and protein, but again, you got to be careful with how you do it and the volume of food. If your diet is causing you to have high glucose that's 4 hours down the road, fix it. Granted, you're younger, you're athletic, you're very active. This may be a good meal for you. As we're going to see, I think it's our next one now, is the exercise-related hypoglycemia. A meal like this can certainly help with that. So let's segue into that. The exercise-related hypoglycemia is pretty simple. I went through this a lot. I grew up on an old mill pond. So we swam all summer, and once that ice was thick enough, we were skating, playing hockey like crazy. So I'd come inside after skating for 4 or 5 hours one afternoon, and I'd be having lows all night long. So what we called it, just between the family, the lag effect of exercise. But essentially, this is an exercise-induced hypoglycemia because of intense exercise, causing the muscle recovery period to be very sensitive to insulin, and therefore causing hypoglycemia way beyond where you would expect it to happen. We see this with hockey, we see this with swimmers, marathon runners. Any of you that have done any sort of intense activity, you've experienced it. Maybe you just treated and didn't notice it, but this is one of the fun effects of dice rolling that diabetes likes to do with us, just to keep us on our toes. So how do you treat it? Number one, you're going to broken record here, blood test, blood test, blood test. If you're using a sensor, great, but you need to compensate for your insulin. And this was very difficult for me growing up because on shots, multiple shots a day, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to be playing hockey this afternoon, so we reduced the basal insulin, but then it got warm out or it got too cold or a blizzard happened, something I couldn't play, so then I'm dealing with hyperglycemia. So with the pumps, it's much easier. All the pumps have a temporary target or a temporary basal rate that you can set. This will reduce the amount of insulin it automatically gives you for a set period of time. That's excellent for anyone running or any intense exercise that might have this lag effect. You can also adjust your goal. So I know the Medtronic pumps let you set a different goal during exercise time, which essentially is reducing the basal insulin. So different things you can do with that. And of course, you can always adjust it with food. So we talked about the Chinese meals or the pizza with the high fat, high protein content. Those will certainly help you deal with the lag effect of the exercise. I will say, if you're trying to exercise and stay fit and healthy, those probably aren't the best meals to lace it with, but you understand the concept. So the last two are kind of boring. They're not nearly as much physiology involved. One is just stress-induced hyperglycemia. We see this, what I notice most often with my patients is they don't recognize stress. So we think stress, okay, my grandfather died. It's been very stressful and my sugars have been higher. Not surprising. Again, the stress hormones are involved. There's some insulin resistance. Typical Americans, we lace every tragedy with food, so there's probably some inappropriate food involved. But this can cause some hyperglycemia. The other side of the coin here is the good stress. We're buying a house. So the doc says, hey, your sugars seem to be running high lately. Have you been under any sort of stress? No, not at all. I'm doing great. I'm so excited about life. Well, buying a house and even positive stress can still have that negative impact on the body. So when we think stress, it doesn't have to be bad. It could be, you're planning a big party to go to, or you're, buying a house, having a baby. All these things can impact the body's response, the stress response, which can cause hyperglycemia. The last one, which I am so guilty of, even to this day, it's not even funny. It's not really a phenomenon, it's more of a behavior. This is insulin stacking. So for those of us using pumps, if I say active insulin time, you have a good idea what I mean. Correction factor, you know what I mean. The bottom line is, for anybody taking insulin, if you're correcting your glucose with a dose, give it enough time. I am so guilty of this. For whatever reason, my sugar will be up a little bit. I'll correct it through the pump, or the pump corrects it on its own because I'm on the system, but I don't wait. I get impatient, so I correct a little bit more. And then another hour, maybe a little bit more. Next thing you know, I'm having a low blood sugar that I now have to treat. So this is an insulin stacking. Again, it's not really a physiologic phenomenon. It's an insulin stacking behavior that causes low blood sugars. So if you're taking some extra Humalog for your high sugar, and then you wait a little bit and take more and some more, that insulin stacks on itself, and then you drop like a rock. So again, avoid this. We don't want to self-induce hypoglycemia. It's never fun. Hypoglycemia in general is not fun, but we certainly don't want to be the cause. So if you know your active insulin time, the duration of time that the insulin is functional in you, Keep that in your head at all times. Be religious about paying attention to it. So if your active insulin time, I'll do it simply, is 2 hours, and you took, say, 4 units for a high sugar, it's been an hour and your sugar's still high. So I'm mad, I'm going to take 6 units this time. Well, you still have half of that 4 units in you. So essentially, I've taken now 8 units to correct my high sugar, and I'm going to drop like a rock. So pay attention to your active insulin time. Use that in your dose calculations, and just be careful. Most importantly, and I'm the most guilty about this, give it some time. Keep in mind, we talked about exercise and the muscles being more willing to take up glucose. So take that correction dose in your leg, go for a little walk. Don't go too far. Don't go without some food in your pocket just in case. Just go to get the blood moving. I used to tell this to my type 2 patients all the time. I don't want you to take a shot in your belly or your leg and just sit there and do nothing and wait, because you'll go crazy. Get out, move around a little bit, get the blood flowing, get that insulin working a little bit better, and you'll see that sugar start to come down. I myself am very guilty of this one because I get very impatient with a high sugar and I want it fixed immediately. America is very much an immediate society. Everything we have is not fast enough. So take your time, be patient, and pay attention to the trend. If you're using a sensor and you see, geez, I'm still a little higher than I want, but it's sloping downward, okay. You're going in the right direction. You've done the right thing. You don't need to augment that dose. So, let's see, we went over the dawn phenomenon, the Somogyi effect, the feet on the floor phenomenon, the Chinese restaurant effect, the stress-induced hyperglycemia, the exercise-induced hypoglycemia, and then the silly human behavior of insulin stacking, really more impatient diabetes patients. Those are some of the nasty phenomenon, some of the interesting phenomena and the physiology behind them that give us some wacky blood sugars. We see a lot of them happening in the morning. So please don't take one day to make your decision. Take a couple of days, test frequently, look at your sensor data, see what's going on and try to figure it out. Then you can make the appropriate changes in conjunction with your healthcare provider. Please like, comment, subscribe, give me some ideas, tell us about some of your stories with these phenomenon. We like to share them. We like to discuss them. I do respond to just about every comment as soon as I can. And there's been a lot of really good points brought up by folks. So please continue to comment and let me know any other videos you might like to hear about. I'm happy to do some research and brush up on things for you. Again, if you want to see weekly videos about diabetes, living with diabetes, living and winning with diabetes, from a fool that loves diabetes, please subscribe. But as I always say, stay healthy, folks.